Welcome everyone to this spiritual video. Today we dive together into a deep and powerful practice, the repetition of Ayat E Karima. If you are going through moments of doubt, confusion, or if you feel overwhelmed by life's challenges, know that this ayat can become the key to your healing. In this video, we will discover how these sacred words can not only purify your heart, but also bring peace, strength, and light to the darkest areas of your life. So take a moment to breathe deeply, relax, and let this divine wisdom guide you. 1. The call to deep meditation. Life at times can seem overwhelming. Our hearts are weighed down by daily challenges, and our minds troubled by concerns that seem endless. Yet in these moments of confusion and doubt, there is a remedy, a divine light that can soothe our souls. Allah, in His infinite mercy, has placed at our disposal powerful tools to enable us to overcome every trial, to find a path to peace. Among these blessings, there is one particularly precious, often neglected in its depth and transformative power, the Ayat E Karima. This sacred word, spoken by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, contains infinite wisdom that spans the ages and trials of life. By repeating it with sincerity and devotion, we are invited to enter a state of deep meditation, a state where the heart finds refuge in the greatness of Allah. The Ayat E Karima that we are talking about today is as follows. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulk wa lahu alhamd wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. This sublime word reminds us of the absolute sovereignty of Allah, His oneness, His omnipotence, and the grace that He showers on His creatures. But why this repetition? Why not just say once, "There is no God but Allah," and be content with that? The simple act of repeating this ayat 100 times, and not one less, allows us to enter a deep spiritual dimension, beyond words. Repetition is not a mechanical exercise. It is an invitation to penetrate the deep layers of our being, to purify our heart, and to remind ourselves of the greatness of Allah. With each repetition, we draw closer to our Creator, and our heart becomes purified of the impurities that hinder it. Why 100 times then? This is a question worth thinking about. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, has granted us this practice to invite us to constancy, perseverance, and patience. To repeat this ayat 100 times is to devote oneself to worship, humility, and total submission to Allah. It becomes a spiritual act that transforms not only our mental state, but also the very essence of our soul. The inspiring story of Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, illustrates the power of this practice. One day, Sa'ad found himself in a situation of great difficulty. Problems seemed to be piling up around him, and he was helpless. He sought advice from the Prophet, who in his wisdom advised him to repeat the Ayat E Karima with sincere faith, without hesitation. By following this advice, Sa'ad experienced a profound spiritual transformation. The difficulties in his life miraculously dissipated, and he finally felt free from the chains of his problems. The repetition of the ayat, coupled with unwavering faith, had a profound and liberating effect on him. And you, what situation do you find yourself in today? What are the trials that trouble you and lead you astray? Can you imagine the power of this simple repetition in your own life? By repeating Ayat E Karima, you not only connect to an ancestral spiritual tradition, but you also open yourself to a divine power capable of overcoming all difficulties. So what would be your first step towards inner peace? 2. The hidden power of Ayat E Karima. When we speak the sacred words, La ilaha illallah, we are not only making a declaration of divine unity, but we are engaging in a spiritual act of immeasurable power. These words resonate in our soul, anchor our heart in a universal truth, and remind us of the majesty of Allah, the One, the creator of all things. The simple repetition of this phrase, however short, has the capacity to transform our being on a profound level, often beyond what we can fully understand. Ayat E Karima is not simply a verse that we recite mechanically, but a direct call to the purification of the soul, to the broadening of our consciousness. Each word, each syllable, carries within it a divine vibration which penetrates the deepest layers of our heart and our mind. When we repeat it sincerely, we allow this spiritual power to transform us. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us that words carry sacred energy. He said, "The words you speak are the deeds of your heart." The letters of the Quran are not simple characters. They are imbued with divine light. Each sound, each rhythm resonates throughout the entire universe, calling for the unity of creation. By repeating Ayat E Karima, we engage not only our voice but our entire being, our most intimate essence, in a process of continuous spiritual purification. A striking example of this hidden power is found in Surah Al-Ikhlas, 112, 1:1-4. Say, Allah is one. Allah is the only one to be implored for what we desire. These verses remind us that whatever the situation we are going through, our ultimate recourse remains Allah. And this fundamental truth, repeated with humility and faith, becomes an act of total submission to the divine will. This is where the profound power of Ayat E Karima lies, in constantly connecting us to the One, in helping us to overcome the weight of the illusions of this material world and to concentrate on the essential. An inspiring story reminds us of the profound impact of this practice. A man, overwhelmed by increasingly difficult trials, went to a scholar, a man of faith, and confided to him his despair. The scholar calmly and wisely said to him, "Repeat this verse 1,000 times, and I assure you, you will see a change." The man, although skeptical, followed the advice, repeating the ayat every day with perseverance. A few days later, he felt a profound calm that he had never experienced before. Although his problems did not disappear instantly, he felt supported by a new strength. It was no longer the gravity of his worries that dominated, but an inner serenity nourished by his renewed faith. The act of repeating Ayat E Karima thus becomes a true spiritual act of renewal. It is not only the resolution of external problems that we seek, but the inner transformation that allows us to face them with faith and perseverance. Each repetition becomes a step towards purification of the soul, a chance to reconnect with Allah and experience His presence, even in the darkest moments. Now the question arises: what pains, trials, or burdens do you carry in your heart? Have you ever tried to free yourself from it by connecting to Allah, reciting this sacred verse with complete faith? Can the practice of this repetition become your anchor in this world of turbulence? Whether you are in peace or in struggle, this simple yet profound act can become the means to overcome difficulties of the heart and mind. 3. Healing the soul. Every breath we take is a blessing from Allah, a pure and divine gift. In this breath, there is a mystical energy, an essence of life which penetrates our entire being. As clear water purifies the body, each breath can purify our hearts, calm our thoughts, and lighten our minds. But just as water can be cloudy and dirty, the soul can be clouded by doubts, fears, and trials. Yet just as a stream of light breaks through the darkness, there is a path that allows us to find that clarity again. Ayat E Karima, when recited with sincere faith, becomes this light, this pure water which washes and heals. Each repetition is like a drop of purification that falls on the dry earth of our heart. It sweeps away the stones of doubt, chases away the shadows of fear, and opens the windows of the soul to let in the light of faith. In this noisy world, Where souls are often lost in the incessant race of desires and worries, the human heart desperately seeks peace. The sick soul, in search of healing, seeks the light of divine love, a refuge in which it can rest. The repetition of this ayat becomes this beacon, a soft and calming light that guides the heart, even in the deepest darkness. It is said in the Quran, in Surate Ash-Shifa 41-44. If we had revealed this Quran in a foreign language, they would have said, "Why are its verses not explained clearly?" This word reminds us that true healing lies in understanding and sincerely accepting the words of Allah. They are not just words, they are remedies, balms for the soul. When we repeat Ayat E Karima with pure faith, we open our hearts to the light of this divine understanding. We allow ourselves to reconnect with the essence of healing, because Allah, in His great mercy, has given us His words as a means of regaining spiritual balance. An inspiring story perfectly illustrates this spiritual healing. A companion, struck not only by physical illness, but also by a heavy spiritual burden, came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. His body was weak, his heart filled with despair. The Prophet advised him to repeat Ayat E Karima 100 times every day, with unwavering faith. The man followed the Prophet's advice, and after a few days, something miraculous happened. He felt regenerated, not only in his body, but in his soul. What was once a burden that had become heavy to bear was transformed into a lightness, a deep calm that invaded his entire being. Healing lies not only in the improvement of external circumstances, but in the internal change that occurs when the soul draws closer to Allah. The repetition of this ayat is not a simple mechanical recitation. It is an act of faith, a form of deep and sincere prayer that purifies the heart and allows divine healing to take hold in our lives. At this point, a question arises. How can the act of repeating this ayat bring healing to the dark areas of your life? Perhaps the shadows of fear, sadness, or guilt weigh you down. Perhaps old wounds, invisible to the world, torment your soul. But by repeating these sacred words, can you imagine the inner peace that could emerge? Perhaps healing is not an immediate solution to all your problems, but a gradual path toward inner light and serenity. Whether it's a cure for your heart, a healing for your mind, or simply a gentle light in the darkness, the repetition of Ayat E Karima becomes an act of total submission to divine wisdom. It reminds you that no matter the trials, healing always begins with a sincere return to the one who heals. 4. Unity with Allah. Unity with Allah is the greatest treasure, a precious good that the soul seeks throughout its existence. In this world full of distractions and trivialities, we are constantly searching for something deeper, more eternal. And yet, what we seek is already within reach, in the very essence of our being. Ayat E Karima is this reminder, this subtle thread which reconnects us to the divine unity, to the source of all that exists. Each time we utter these sacred words, we affirm our relationship with Allah, and through this repetition, we delve deeper into understanding our own existence. La ilaha illallah. There is no other divinity than Him. It is not just an act of intellectual faith, but a spiritual experience that takes root in the heart. Everything we have, everything we are, comes from Allah. And everything we seek, peace, serenity, the deep meaning of life, is found only in Him. Through each repetition of this ayat, we are reminded of this infinite truth, and this awakens in us a spiritual connection with the source of all creation. In Surah Al-Baqarah 2:55, Allah reminds us of this essence of His unity. Allah, there is no God except Him, the living, the self-subsisting. This word is a beacon that lights our path towards a deep understanding of what is truly essential. Allah, in His purity, exists beyond all human conception. He is the self-subsisting one, without need of anything. In this truth lies a peace that envelops us and frees us from the chains of ego and worldly distractions. When we repeat Ayat E Karima with sincerity, we feel this unity manifesting itself in our lives. We detach ourselves from material concerns and focus on what is eternal. It becomes an act of inner purification, an act that elevates us above the passing concerns of this world. This practice becomes a powerful way to align ourselves with our divine essence, to remind us that no matter what difficulties we encounter, peace and serenity can only be found in Allah. An inspiring story clearly shows us this transformative power of the ayat. A man lost in the illusions of the world and overwhelmed by material desires sought advice from one of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. The latter advised him to repeat Ayat E Karima with sincere faith. The man followed this advice, and little by little, his life was transformed. Not only did he free himself from worldly concerns, but he felt a deep and unshakable connection with Allah. What once seemed to engulf him disappeared, and an infinite peace invaded his heart. The question we must ask ourselves is, when you connect to Allah through the repetition of this ayat, how do you perceive divine unity in your own life? Do you feel the proximity of this infinite source? Perhaps as you repeat these sacred words, you begin to understand that divine oneness is not just a distant concept, but a palpable reality that can manifest in every aspect of your existence. The peace you seek outside can reside within you when you anchor yourself in this oneness with Allah. Through the repetition of Ayat E Karima, we find tranquility, serenity, and divine light, which illuminate our path in this world of turbulence. We are invited to see, feel, and experience this oneness with Allah in every moment of our lives, constantly reminding ourselves that all we have and all we seek is found in Him alone. 5. The solution to all problems. In summary, the repetition of Ayat E Karima is not simply a spiritual practice, it is a path to healing, inner peace, and profound transformation. Each time we speak these sacred words, we open a door to Allah's infinite mercy, a door that allows us to overcome trials, bring light into darkness, and find peace even in the midst of storms. It is God's solution to our problems, a simple but powerful method to purify our hearts, lighten our burdens, and reconnect with our true spiritual essence. Ayat E Karima thus becomes our refuge, a constant source of strength and guidance. No matter how intense our difficulties, sincere repetition of this prayer brings us closer to divine mercy and allows us to see beyond obstacles. It is the key to an inner transformation that goes far beyond simple words. By repeating this ayat, we allow our souls to be elevated, our faith to be strengthened, and our hearts to be purified. We find our deep connection with Allah, and through that, with eternal peace. An inspiring story reminds us of the profound impact of this practice. A man, overwhelmed by the challenges of life, sought advice from scholars. He was desperate, not knowing where to turn. One of the scholars advised him to repeat Ayat E Karima 100 times a day, every day, with sincerity and faith. The man followed this advice, even in his moments of doubt. After a few weeks, he began to notice a change in himself. His problems had not disappeared, but his outlook on life had evolved. His heart was soothed, his faith was strengthened, and he began to see his challenges in a different light. It was not that his circumstances had changed, but his connection to Allah and his way of seeing the world had been renewed. Today it is time for you to ask your heart the same question. Are you ready to take this step of faith? Are you ready to repeat Ayat E Karima with a sincere heart, with every breath, so that every problem of your life is illuminated by the infinite light of Allah? The solution to all your challenges, to all your uncertainties, lies in the connection you establish with Allah through this practice. Never underestimate the power of faith and sincere prayer. You have within you the ability to transform your reality, restore peace to your soul, and overcome the trials that stand in your way. Take this step today, and let this divine light guide you towards a brighter, more serene, and more blessed future. And there you have it, dear friends. The beauty and power of Ayat E Karima lies in its simplicity and effectiveness. It is not just a prayer, but a path to healing, inner peace, and unity with Allah. If you want to transform your life, heal your heart, and overcome your trials, start repeating this ayat now with faith and sincerity. Let it penetrate every fiber of your being. The solution to all your problems lies in this divine connection. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video so others can also find the peace and light they are looking for. May Allah's mercy be upon you, and see you soon for a new video full of wisdom and inspiration.